We made it, Dr. T. Today's March 1st. It's our premiere podcast. How do you feel?
I'm excited about this. I mean, after being a professor for 8 years, we have our own podcast at Southern Technical College. We're always looking for new ways to basically get the interest of the students. And I believe, again, after all my years of teaching, that this is going to do it. So we're very grateful for you, Brad, for basically coming up with this.
Well, you're listening to Time Out with Southern Technical College. We're here in the lobby of Southern Technical College. We got some people gathering around here, but we thank you for joining us on this podcast. Some of the things we're going to talk about on this podcast range from three things. Introductions. We're going to talk with some staff members. Dr. T's with us today. We have the executive director, the DOE of the school, and some instructors here in the Southern Technical program, at least the surgical tech program, that we're going to kind of talk to them a little bit about their philosophy of teaching and anything they feel like they want to talk about. We're also going to talk about clinical requirements. Everyone that's going out to externships, I'm pretty sure everyone wants to go to externships and just skip out all the schooling right now, just jump right out in the field. But what are the requirements? We'll talk a little bit about requirements, hours, case requirements, so that kind of subjects. But stay tuned to the end of the podcast because we'll have a lot of information on the clinical part because that's more formal, and so stay tuned for a little bit of that kind of subject. We're also going to have two interviews with students, one in the middle of the term, it's probably in the year process, third term, and I'm going to get her perspective about some of the do's and don'ts that she did, some of the hurdles she had to overcome. And obviously that's a good perspective looking on students in the sense of what can I learn from that student. Then we'll have a student that's just about to go out to externships. What are her fears, Dr. T? Does she know the requirements going out? So we'll talk about that and have that kind of interview a little bit later on. So we welcome you. Thank you for joining us here. Our podcast is called Time Out with Southern Technical College. We are on Spotify. Obviously, if you don't have a Spotify account, please go on to Spotify, follow for any future uploads, future podcasts. We're going to have a range of subjects ranging from anatomy with Dr. T, special guest speakers ranging from different companies. I think Dr. T has something coming out with, is it a bodysuit?
Yeah.
Dr. T, why don't you talk a little bit about that bodysuit?
Yes, what we're doing again next month is we're bringing a company in that has, again, a vest that is, again, a surgical vest. So they're bringing one of their reps with them. They're going to be cutting into the vest so we can see the inside of the body in three-dimensional. It's a learning tool, again, so we're going to be doing that. But we brought all kinds of different guests into our school. That's unique about our school. We bring in a lot of visitors. We've had people from Caritas that basically did fish scales and basically used them for wound care. So we're going to add that, I believe, also to the podcast again, so you can kind of review some of the interesting topics that come up with Surg Tech at the present time.
Well, we have a lot of things planned in the future. So follow us on Spotify. Please help us. We need more followers. Obviously, we're trying to get information out there to the students and actually information out there for anyone in the field. Now, on Spotify, there's actually on Anchor too, there's an option for you to leave a voice message. And if you're not really familiar with that, what that does is it gives you the ability to ask questions on our podcast. So any information that you have, obviously this podcast is our premier podcast involving some subjects ranging from introductions, a little bit about clinical requirements. But if you have questions about clinical requirements, leave a little message in that podcast message kind of option. We're going to jump right over some interviews. The first guest we have is our executive director of our school. Now, just to refresh your memory, we are a school located here in Port Charlotte. It's called Southern Technical College. And we have a lot of schools within this area, but we're located in Port Charlotte. We're actually in the lobby, and look who's walking up now. We have Ginny Carpenter. Come on down to the Price is Right. So we are a local school in Port Charlotte, and Ginny is our executive director, the backbone, in my opinion, of the school. Are you affiliated with the group, the Carpenters?
No, I wish I was, but I am a fan of the Carpenters.
So, Ginny, obviously, we're just trying to get introductions of, you're a little bit of a bio. So I'll give you some time to introduce yourself and maybe have some questions to kind of guide you along.
Good,
so,
great.
Ginny Carpenter.
Hi. fun, exciting. Welcome. My name is Jenny Carpenter. I'm the Executive Director for Southern Technical College in Port Charlotte. I've been here for a couple years, relocated from Pennsylvania to Florida. Very excited to be here at this time, exciting time. I think our programs serve the community very well and look forward to perhaps adding more in the future. This has been really my job for my entire career, is working in education. So again, helping, guiding, and getting students to fulfill their dreams is really what we do. You can see from the time a student starts to the time they graduate what an impact our education can have on their lives. So that's exciting to be part of it, and I've enjoyed my career.
So I have an opinion or a question for you there, Jenny. What is your philosophy about teaching? What makes a good teacher in your aspect?
Obviously, the instructor, the teacher, professor is qualified, knows their material, but I think most important is that they have a passion and they like to see students learn. Teaching is a passion. Not everybody's cut out for it. Not everybody can do it. So I think the philosophy really is that the person, the teacher, the professor is interested in affecting a student's learning in a positive manner. There's different ways students learn, so they need to understand that. Instructors need to respect students. They're not always easy. Sometimes they have challenges that prevent them from staying focused, but a true, passionate, caring instructor can be a huge difference in a student's life.
So if I was a student or a future student, what would you advise a student to try to get access to this program? Let's say, what was the first step? Let's say I wanted to come to this school. How would I try to contact this school in some aspect?
Well, most of our students either know somebody that went here, so there's a lot of referral students, friends or family. Students do a lot of Googling today, so if I'm interested in electrical technology or surgical tech or medical assisting, veterinary assisting, I typically will Google, find schools in the area. We also try to do a lot of community outreach, and more so over the last years after COVID. We try to get into the community because I think students, prospective students, don't always know we're here. So community involvement or being visible in the community sometimes attracts students. But typically, as I mentioned, it's usually, my cousin went there, or just simply, where could I go for electrical?
So final question, and then we can finish up a little about, you can have time just to look at the camera, tell us something motivated. What would you like to tell the students? But we'll finish up, where do you see the school in about 5 years, maybe?
That's a good question. Sure. Well, obviously continuing to serve the community. I would love to see some additional programs that could attract more students, maybe an HVAC program, additional medical programs. We have some space in the vicinity that we could add classrooms. We're getting pretty tight right now. Possibly a business program that might focus on social media and some training that for individuals in offices. I think it's also just making sure that our current programs that we have continue to stay current. Make sure that we have the right equipment, the best teaching equipment, and keeping our employees that are here, because that's certainly what makes up the school.
So this is your time to shine, Jenny Carpenter. Look into the camera. This is from a favorite show that I always do. Look into the camera. Tell the students something motivated. And obviously it's your time to shine. It's your time to tell something to the students. Okay.
Well, as you mentioned, I can't sing like Karen Carpenter. So I'm going to have to... But seriously, I think the most important thing for students that I would advise them to keep in mind is just focus on your goals. Stay focused on your goals. There's so many distractions and so many obstacles that they face that could deter them or distract them and cause them to stop pursuing their dream. But when students finish, their lives typically change for the better. And they've got a whole new career and a whole new life out there waiting for them. So it's really just trying to stay focused and keep pursuing that passion that they came here just to in the beginning.
Oh, outstanding. Well, Jenny, thank you for your time. I know you're very busy.
Thank you.
All
Great.
right.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
See you later.
So we're here with the DOE of Southern Technical College. We're just doing some intros. So I'll let you introduce yourself, and then I have some questions to kind of guide you along.
Okay, Big Bad Brad. Hey, my name is Rick Pucci. I'm the DOE here at the Port Charlotte campus, and I've been working for Southern Tech for about 8 years. 7.5 of those years, I've been an instructor. I spent time here on ground in Port Charlotte, so this is my home campus, and then I did about 5 years online.
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 I remember you. So, yes, I think I had your class.
I think I did have you as a class.
Yes, that's true. Did I pass is the question.
Obviously, you're so brilliant.
You're right. So, some questions here. Where do you see the school in about 5 years? What's your future of this, in a sense, of the school?
So, well, that's a good question, Brad. That's a lot of years to kind of plan out. But I guess what I would say is, moving forward, technical education is something that I think is going to grow and grow and grow. You know, we have our associates in Surge Tech, obviously, and we know the demand in allied health and the medical field is great. And so training up those students, I think, is a continuing source of growth. But then on the technical side, for the viewers that don't know, we do other things, right? We do MAs, we do also technical skills like electricity. Other campuses do HVAC and welding. So I think the future for technical education is bright, and I think the future for allied health is even brighter.
Outstanding. I look forward to that future, right? So, surgical technology students going out to externships. We talked a little bit about one student, we won't mention her name, but roadblocks. We kind of gave a scenario of what happens when you, we're falling apart here.
I'm taking your mic.
What happens if you hit a roadblock or a wall? What kind of suggestions would you give that student?
You know, there are real roadblocks that all of our students are going to face. There's things out of their control, right? And so, you know, housing is an issue, transportation is an issue, childcare is an issue. Those are real roadblocks. And we're here to help solve those real problems. We have resources, we have referrals we can give, but some of the roadblocks are in attitudes and in mindsets. And Brad, those are the ones I think that we have to work on from the very beginning, helping our students understand that they are qualified, that they are quality, and helping them kind of maybe tune out some of those past kind of recordings about them maybe not being enough or not being academically inclined enough. And that's what I love about our school, is that part of our job is not just to build their technical skills, but to build them up so that they can exercise them in the field. And I think externship is the ultimate opportunity to take that training and put it to work.
Oh, I agree with you 100%. All right, Mr. Pucci, thank you for your time. Look into the camera. This is your time to shine. Say something a little bit motivative, and maybe something you want to say to the students itself. Your time to shine, Mr. Pucci.
Well, okay. So, friends, I would tell you that nobody at this school can want it more than you do. And so let me just make sure you all understand, your success comes from somewhere deep inside of you. Tap into it. You are enough and you are capable. Just want it. And we will do everything we can to help you make your dreams come true.
All right.
Hi everyone, my name is Caroline Brzezinski. I'm currently the program director for the Surge Tech program at Southern Technical College in Port Charlotte, Florida. I have 3 amazing staff that work on our team. Brad, who's my clinical coordinator, who is in charge of our podcast now and does some of our social media marketing. And I have Dr. Triana, who does all of the gen ed classes, who's been with the company for a few years. Then I have a brand new instructor, Chrissy, who does my core Surge Tech classes. And she came all the way from Minnesota to join our team. Our program visions include preparing the students to be in the operating room functionally as a surge tech, and work closely with the doctors and the surgeons to provide the best patient care that's possible.
Hi. We're here with Emily Fisher. She's not the Fisher of men, she's the Fisher of students. She knows where I'm going with that. Emily Fisher's here. She's going to talk a little bit about what she does here. I'll let her introduce herself. So Emily, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, yes, as Brad said, I'm Emily Fisher. I am the senior admissions representative here, and I help students change their current situation. So if they want to further their education or change their career altogether, that is where I come into play.
Well, you're not going to get away with this. Tell us a little bit about your personal life. Where are you from? Obviously, I think you're from Canada,
Yes.
right? So there's no A's in here, right? All right. So tell us a little bit what you want, a little bit of bio, who you are, where you came from.
Sure. So I was born and raised in Canada on a small island, Vancouver Island, on the west coast. I grew up there, and then my junior year of high school, I did move to Connecticut for a year. Yes, I did. I went to boarding school for a year, went home for my last year of high school, and then moved to Tennessee. I went to college there. I played college soccer, and then I have been in Florida for the last 2.5 years.
Oh, how do you like Florida?
I love it. I love the beach. I love the sun. So yes, no complaints there. No snow here.
Outstanding. So I have some questions here. What makes a good student? Let's say you're trying to think about this program, and obviously you deal with trying to get students in there, but what really makes a good student in the sense of Southern Technical College?
So a student who is determined and hardworking and is willing to make a sacrifice. Sometimes these students are full-time employees, so they do need to make that sacrifice of coming to school while maintaining work, family life. So just someone who is ultimately ready to make that change and is willing to put in the work.
What I have, where do you see the school advancing in the next 5 years? Obviously, you're dealing with the end of getting students in, but where would you see the students or the school, where would you see the school in about 5 years?
I see us advancing very quickly. Our numbers have increased, even just in the last year. So the more students we have, the more programs we can introduce and just grow into the community. Port Charlotte itself is growing rapidly, so the more the community grows, I think the more that we grow. So the biggest thing I think is just sharing the students' experiences that they have, and by allowing these students to share their experiences, they help their own friends and family. So if we continue to do that, then we're definitely going to grow rapidly.
This is your time to shine, Emily Fisher. So tell us a little bit, something motivating. Look into the camera. Tell a little bit something motivating for the students, and also how can they reach you if they're thinking about coming to Southern Technical College? So this is your time to shine. Go ahead and
something motivating. I think that if you put in the hard work and you're determined, you will definitely see some success very quickly. So our programs are accelerated and short. So by making the sacrifice for the short time that you do, then you're able to change your career and change your situation and ultimately do what you want to do, whether it be in the medical field, with animals, helping people. Regardless of what you want to do, we can help you and we can make sure that you get there. So if you put in the work and you continue to ask questions and ask friends and rely on people, then you 100% will be successful.
Now, I know this podcast kind of features surgical technology. What other programs do we have here at the school?
We have a medical assisting program, which is a great way to get your foot into the door into the medical field. So if you're not really sure what you want to do, but you want to get your feet wet, that's a great way to start. We also have a veterinary assisting program. So if you have a love for animals and also helping people, because you do need to deal with the dog and cat parents and stuff like that. So we have the veterinary assisting program. We also have a electrical program. So if you're interested in more of a hands-on technical trade, then the electrical program would be a great fit for you. And then, of course, surgical tech as well.
Thank you for taking time to speak with us, and have a good day.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay.
All right, I'm here with a student. This is part of the introduction part of some of the students. We have a student we're going to interview a little bit later about going out to externship. So we have a student here, which she's going to introduce herself. We're going to ask some questions about what she could have done a little bit better in the program. In the sense of studying, but I'll let her introduce herself. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Shanna. I'm in my third term of the surgical technician program at Southern Technical College. I joined this program I'm almost a year into my 2-year. I'm a single mom. My background of working is I'm a home health aide, and I've been a home health aide for 7, almost 8 years with the same company. I really like what I did. But after some traumatic events, I really needed a change of pace, and I really liked the operating room and what goes on around it. So
let me ask you a question about when you decided you wanted to do surgical technology. What kind of drove you to do this program?
I think the deciding factor was I had already looked into the surgical technician program. I wanted to be in the OR room, handing the tools and stuff, and I just didn't know there was a name associated with that. And I had seen an ad for the tech program from a different school, but I just didn't have the means or the time to start then. So
I can talk a little bit about me personally about this. You loved anatomy. You just didn't know how to get it involved within the operating room, and obviously this was a good resource to get towards it. I agree with you 100%. When you first came to this program, what was the most trying scenario for you?
The one hurdle, actually, the hurdles that I had to get over were my fear of A&P, anatomy and physiology.
Right.
Because I had gone into school for massage therapy, and I had failed the A&P part 1 at that point. So getting over the mind hurdle of I'm not good enough. I failed this once was something for me. And also I know a little bit of medical terms, but with this you really need to know your medical terms. Like it's a big part of this.
No, I agree with you. Like medical terminology is going to get through a lot of scenarios. Even if you didn't know what the case was, you can break that term down, especially for CST exams. It's going to help you traumatically, right?
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about your futures. What do you want to do in the future? Obviously, what do you anticipate going out to externships? What are your fears? What is your perspective of what externships, and do you know the requirements involved in externships?
I do know a little bit of what's involved for my externships. I know we're going to have at least a 30-hour minimum a week to have a basic of our requirements, and then I think it's 500 cases.
That is, it's 500 hours, but you're right, 120 cases. Yeah,
that's
you're right.
it.
Yeah.
I personally, at first, I was like, I'll go to a small little in and out surgery type thing. That was my mindset at first. But then as I got along, it was like, why would I do that? I want all the cases that I can possibly get my hands on to see what I would like best, first off. I want to learn as much as possible, and what I'm afraid of the most is making the small mistakes or making a mistake that could potentially hurt the patient itself.
Right. Okay. So thank you for this interview. Obviously, this is an introduction for a student that's kind of on her third term, right?
Yes.
And she's, looking towards externships. But go ahead and look into the camera. Tell a little bit about yourself. Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
I see myself trying all different fields. I want to be kind of a jumper, doing different cases. And then hopefully, maybe even after that point, I would like to become a first assist.
Good. Well, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
So I'm here with a student that's about to go to externships. She's in my class, Surgical 3. So this is an interview with a vampire. No. This is an interview with Taylor about going to externships. So I'll let Taylor give a little bit of bio. So let us know a little bit about where you came from. But first, just go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Taylor Mares. I came from Arcadia, Florida.
Okay.
It's
Any Arcadia fans?
it's like 45 minutes from here.
Right.
Yep. Some of the obstacles that I've come across is certainly learning how to restudy,
Let me ask you a question. Obviously studying, right? When you first wanted to think about surgical technology, how did that come about? And how did you choose Southern Technical College?
Well, I knew coming back into school that I needed a place that would have smaller classes and a little more devoted to just the students instead of larger classes of 20 to possibly 50 students in a classroom. So that definitely is what drawed me to this campus. I heard from several other people who have went to school here that also live in Arcadia that went through the surgical tech program, and they loved it. So I thought, hey, why not give it a shot? I love anatomy. I fell in love with anatomy in probably about 5th grade when my science teacher came in and she was talking about the cardiac system and trying to teach us as much as she could, 5th graders, on the heart. So whenever I learned about just a little bit on the heart, it made the light shine. And I was like, wow. Maybe this is going to be the field that I go in. Maybe something to do in the medical field.
So anatomy, I think the common trend, we'll get to externships in a minute. I know you're probably a bit nervous about externships. We all are. But I have heard before where anatomy was the biggest obstacle to learn. Now, obviously we have Dr. Triana that teaches anatomy. Was that a big factor in your overall anxiety? Was anatomy or was it medical terminology?
Medical terminology, after taking the class and breaking down the prefixes, suffixes, and learning what they meant, it really helped with anatomy. Dr. T was also a wonderful help. He breaks everything down in very interesting ways that helps you remember and understand how things would work.
Yeah. So, externships, the fears. So, 2 things, right? What kind of fears, or what is your expectation of going out to externships? What do you envision in the sense of, we're starting on April 10th, right? I already got your paperwork out there. What is your fears and expectations for externships?
Well, I won't lie, it's a little nerve-wracking.
Okay.
I am a person who feels like I am a perfectionist, so it makes it a little complicated whenever I'm going into a field in a new place that I have never been in before. It's a little nerve-wracking, but I know for a fact that with all the education that y'all have taught us and all the studying that I've done, that I should be able to handle it. Some of the fears, I know this one might be ridiculous, is I've heard that some of the cases that you would have to carry are, with all the instruments in them, are quite heavy, like the orthopedic cases. Some of the instruments in there are quite heavy, and me, myself, I'm tiny and can't really lift that much, but that is one of my fears, that I will not be fast and efficient enough for them.
That's true. So the key word is ergonomics. Lift with what?
Knees.
Your legs, right? So perfectly. So were you prepared for going to externships and understanding what the requirements are? Now, obviously we talked a little bit about it, but let me ask you a question. In the beginning of the program, did you have an idea of what it would entail going out to externships?
Yes.
You did? Okay.
Yes, I did. Simply because I had your class.
Oh.
One of my very first semesters, I had you as a teacher. And you answered a lot of questions that we had. Everyone in the class had questions about externship, and we were a year away from that. We were very interested in finding out how many hours would be entailed into that, what all would be on there, what we would have to specifically do. Would we be able to have time to work ourselves after? That was a real big thing for a majority of them, because most of us are living on our own or have our own families that we have to supply for.
Outstanding. So we have 2 more questions and I'll let you go. I know you're busy. So, not the future Taylor, but the Taylor in the past, about to join Southern Technical College. What advice would you give Taylor? She's about to sign up. It's her first day, but you know all the information going on from here. What advice would you give Taylor?
Oh, well.
Do you understand the question?
What advice would I give myself? Don't be so nervous.
Okay.
Don't be as scared to enter into something new. That was my biggest thing. I was very nervous coming in and meeting new people and new instructors, and starting off with something that, going back to school after not being in it for so long, that was very nerve-wracking a little bit, but I seem to have not had issues with that, and studying all the time really helped.
You have to open the book. You cannot learn through osmosis. I've tried. Right? So this is your time to shine, Taylor. I appreciate you taking some time, but I want you to look into the camera. Camera's over there. Look into the camera. Look into the camera and tell the people out there, where do you see yourself in about 5 years?
5 years? I see myself either doing traveling surgical technology or specializing in cardio for sure.
Outstanding. Good. Thank you for taking time, and I appreciate it.
Absolutely. You're so welcome.
We are here at Southern Technical College. We have a new instructor, and we're so blessed to have this person because she has many years of experience. And I have the privilege of watching her in the lab and seeing some of the things she's doing, and we're really blessed. But I'll let her introduce herself. So you can obviously introduce yourself, tell a little background, where you're from, and then obviously whatever you want to say. So go ahead and introduce yourself. Yep.
Hi, my name is Chrissy Palama. I am a new Surge Tech instructor here at STC. I come from Duluth, Minnesota. I graduated with my Surge Tech degree in 2007. I've worked in a hospital specializing in OBGYN. I've also worked in an outpatient surgery center where they had endoscopy, ophthalmology, and a little bit of ortho. I've also worked in an oral and maxillofacial surgery center, and then we just moved down here in May, and I started here at STC in January 3rd of 2023.
Outstanding. We are so blessed for you to be here. I have a question about, obviously we talked a little bit about instruments, and I see that you're doing something implemented in the lab. How many instruments are the students required to learn? And are there little differences of names, like from the north, from the south? Why don't you talk a little bit about that?
So in the lab in Surgical Skills 1 and 2, I am teaching them about 110 instruments by the end of the 12 weeks. They will need to know the names, what they're used for, and how to hand those instruments to those surgeons by the end. There is some name differences from the north down to the south. One of those was a Kelly clamp. That was the small version. Down here they have a larger version they call the Kelly, and we call those a Carmalt in Minnesota. So that's a little bit difference of different names that are down here.
So why is it important for the student to know the exact name over something they're going to call it out in the field, like the mother-in-law?
Yep.
So go ahead.
So it's good for them to know both those names. The reason why is the surgeon's going to call it a particular name, but they also should know what the given name is, so that if they need to order it or they need to look for it, they're also able to find that information.
I agree. So what other kind of standards do you have for students? What do you think makes a good student?
Showing up for class is a big one. That is because if you miss out on skills, to go back and try and figure those skills out again, what we taught in that class, you're missing out on the key components of working with other students. You also want to be able to learn to work together, and so you need to be in class to work with those students and figure those things out.
So, Chrissy, what is your philosophy about teaching? Are there different types of students, and how do you implement for someone that's more of a visual learner, or maybe someone that's more, hands-on, so to speak?
Well, in my class, I try and teach a little bit of both. I try and implement visual learning plus with hands-on learning. That way I'm hopefully catching both ends for both students.
No, I agree with you. Okay, so Chrissy, I thank you for your time, and we're blessed for you to be here. Hopefully you're here for about 15 years. Anyway, this is your time to shine. Okay. This is my catchphrase, if you didn't get that. This is your time to shine. So look into the camera. Tell something to the students. It can be students something a little bit about yourself, and leave them with something motivating. Go ahead.
Okay. So I have 2 dogs and a cat, 2 border collies. They're crazy. And also motivating is just be positive. You are never going to know this information all at once. It will come later on in life. Even between externships and employment, you're always going to be learning something.
Outstanding. Thank you for taking your time, and you're free to go.
All right.
Anyways, I'm here with Dr. Triana. This is another edition of our interview of the staff that are here. He's a professor here. I'll let him introduce himself. We're really blessed to have Dr. Triana on our staff to teach everything between anatomy, karaoke. But I'll let Dr. T introduce himself.
How's everybody? Yep, my name is Dr. T. Triana. A little bit about myself. I am actually a podiatrist, and I'm a surgical podiatrist, so I practiced for a while. I did my undergraduate in Ohio at the Ohio College of Podiatric Med. Did a residency in Boston at a VA hospital. From there, it took me to all different avenues. I lived in a leprosy colony for a while, again from...
Wait a minute, stop. You lived where, Dr. T?
I lived actually from the VA hospital. It sent me to a leprosy colony in Carville, Louisiana. So I lived there and treated patients with leprosy. So it was an experience. And then I came back and opened my practice. And after years, I worked in also 2 state prisons for men and women. I really wanted something different, and I retired. And I sold my practice, and I realized that I was a little bit too young to retire. So I saw the ad for Southern Tech, and I started teaching in Fort Myers.
Outstanding. We're blessed for you to be here. I have some questions for you, Dr. T. What is your philosophy about teaching, and how do you implement that in anatomy? Maybe tell a little bit about different types of learning styles, but...
Well, my philosophy about teaching is, first of all, hands-on, visual, auditory, and seeing things again as you're learning. So in my day, I hate to say it that way, but we had a cadaver that we worked on for 1 year, 3 times a week. And when I came to Southern Tech, I wasn't sure, again, as a technical school, if that would be acceptable. To work on, we work on, animals, organs of animals, and do live dissections. And I found it was really interesting with the students because even though they were much younger than me, they loved the fact of actually hands-on doing things instead of just reading from books. So we do a lot of things here. We go on a lot of field trips. Next week we're learning the Da Vinci robotics. We have different guest speakers come in that I arrange from all different areas. And that's how we basically learn and how we basically use a part of our program.
So, Dr. T, we're going on the Da Vinci field trip.
Correct.
Can you tell me a little bit about how that goes into play and where we're actually going?
Yes, what we're going to be doing is going to Shore Point and Port Charlotte. We made contact with the rep that teaches the Da Vinci robotics, and what he's going to do is basically show us how to use it and how to drape the robotics, and also at the end, I believe we're even going to be taking a test on basically passing, again, the techniques we learned.
Yeah, so typically on the Da Vinci machine, you'll have a module you'll take for the Da Vinci, and you become not certified, but there is a basic certification of terminology, and that's something that's half the step. When you get out in the field, most Da Vinci people that work within that field want to know you have basic knowledge. So that's a good field trip. I love that. So we go on a lot of field trips. We have guest speakers. Dr. T, you take care of the scheduling in the sense of the activities. You talked about dissections a little bit. So can you talk a little bit about when the students in your class are going to have a chance to get their hands on some items?
Yeah, so what we do is I order animal organs like a sheep heart and kidney and lungs, a uterus that is pregnant, and we basically do open lab outside of class right now where students that are interested in laboratory and dissection can learn skills along with learning instruments at the same time. We've been to autopsies in the past, again, at different hospitals. So we've done a variety of things already in our classes. So when it comes to anatomy, they're a little bit more advanced just because they've already pretty much seen things before they actually learn it in a book.
Gotcha. So if a student was thinking about surgical technology, is it something that anatomy is going to be too overwhelming? Or you think most students can grasp it? And do we apply it to the actual surgery, or is it more of a broad spectrum of anatomy? What do you think?
I think we take an approach that we apply towards surgery, and I believe everybody can learn anatomy. We're all capable of it. What we do is, again, also, I think in our philosophy is that we're such a smaller group and we all work together that when we have, again, issues, again, with learning, we have tutoring, we have different ways that we meet with the students, and we basically learn the skills that way also.
Cool. Outstanding. Dr. T, this is your time to shine, sir, right? We don't call him Mr. T. We call him Dr. T. This is your time to shine. Look into the camera. Tell the students something you want to talk about, something motivating, whatever you want to, something going on in your life. It's your time to shine, Dr. T.
Well, what I see here in the school is, I mean, I've been here now for 8 years. I never anticipated the growth that it would be at our campus. And I drive from Naples to Port Charlotte, so I love the school so much that I do that. I believe in the future of the school. I believe that we're going to have many more students, which we already have grown quite a bit. I think there's going to be many more classes, and I'm going to be happy to be here right up through retirement. So.
Outstanding. We're blessed to have you. Thank you, Dr. T. I'm with Sherry Hughes. She's about 1.5 years in the program. She's going to give a quick little introduction to herself, and we got some questions for you. So go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Sherry Hughes.
Oh, okay. Well, that was brief. That's who she is. So let us know a little bit about yourself, maybe some background, and maybe why did you choose this program? So I ask most students about how did you hear about it, and why did you want to work in surgery in general? And what was your kind of gravitation towards this field?
Well, my gravitation towards this field was I actually started here and took the medical assisting program and ventured out into podiatry, a foot and ankle clinic, and then dermatology, where I found my interest for surgery. And we got to build our own surgical cases, not our cases, but we got to build our own surgical trays. And I like the fast-paced environment. So that's where I found I had a really high interest for surgery. So from there, I enrolled at Southern Tech in 2022.
Now, I know we talk a little bit about, I believe you work in a dermatologist's office. Am I correct on that?
I was working
So
at
you did. So you did like Mohs procedures a little bit.
Yeah.
How did that kind of translate to maybe what you're understanding now? So like the Mohs procedures, maybe tell a little bit about what a Mohs procedure is, and is that something you can kind of translate to this field in a larger spectrum? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. A Mohs procedure is surgical removal of a skin cancer, if it's a squamous cell carcinoma, basal cell, or just a benign tumor sometimes.
So Sherry, what are some obstacles? Everyone hits a wall. You can't just sit at the wall and sit in the fetal position no matter how much I want to.
Yes.
How do we get around your fears and around a wall? So I'll give an example. We used anatomy, but let's say you don't understand something, and maybe you have an experience in that. How did you get around personally? So other students out there thinking, hey, you know what, I can't get around that wall, but maybe you can suggest something that worked for you.
Well, I believe that everybody is afraid of change, and if you don't accept that you can't face things that you're scared of or afraid of, it's really difficult to succeed in any aspect, I think. So just having the courage to be mindful and move forward always, no matter how nervous or misunderstanding you feel about something, is most important.
Yeah, I agree with you. Now, do they call you Sherry Berry? I'm sure.
Share bear.
Share Bear. All right. So that's perfect. Thank you for your time. Hey, look into the camera. Sherry, this is your time to shine. Look into the camera and go ahead and say something motivating. And maybe the past Sherry, when you first started the program, what would you say to that person, that past Sherry, in any advice?
What I think is most important when you enroll as a student at Southern Tech is to be dedicated and to show up, be on time, and make sure that you're arranging your schedule so that you have time to prioritize the study and that you understand the material that's being brought to you, because there is a lot of it and it comes quick. So always making sure that you adjust your schedule so that college comes first and knowledge comes second.
Outstanding. Sherry, thank you for your time. That was outstanding. Thank you. That concludes our podcast here at Southern Technical College. We thank you for joining us. Just to refresh your memory, we are a school located in Port Charlotte, Florida. We deal with for surgical technology, but we have a lot of other programs. We have some future podcasts. So, hey, if you don't follow, you won't get these updates. And please go on Spotify. We are on Spotify. We're also on Google Podcast. So hit that follow, hit that that bell icon to get any kind of updates. And we thank you. Christy, go ahead and give a little outro. Say thank you and whatever you want to say.
Thank you, and looking forward to future students.
Anyways, go ahead, Dr. T.
Thank you. We're glad we'll be interested in seeing you here in our school. We all love the school. We got a large group coming together, so come and join us. I'd be again for our first class.
And that concludes. Hey, stay around. Don't leave. I know you're getting up and you're logging off. You're going on TikTok. We have next up is clinical requirements, and I'm going to talk a little bit more formally about clinical requirements. Really important for externships. Hour requirements, case requirements, a lot of paperwork. But stick around, and we're going to jump right into that now. That's it. This is the introduction part. My name is Bradley Durain. I'm a certified surgical first assist and also a certified surgical assist, just dual certified. I've been a teacher here at Southern Technical College for about 2 years, 7 months. I really enjoy teaching. Obviously, as you get older, you really enjoy teaching. My whole idea was to give back to this program. We are a school located here in Port Charlotte, Southern Technical College, and I wanted to try to give back, and ultimately, hopefully everyone out there in the field want to pay it forward in some aspect. But my part, I'm going to talk a little bit about clinicals. I'm also the clinical externship coordinator. I'm a hands-on kind of person, and most students will learn hands-on. So my responsibility is to place the student, to find this perfect site, in my opinion, a site that works great with the personality and the skills that they bring into the lab. And obviously they need to get their requirements that they need through the AST. And obviously we're going to go over that a little bit now. There's so many requirements, and obviously you have a lot of questions about what is my responsibility. Let's just start off with the basics here. I'm going to go to my notes a little bit about the hours. Now, when you start a program, you should start having a plan in place. What does that mean? Start thinking about externships. Obviously, it's long or it's far in the distance in the sense of when you start. But you should at least know the requirements that most programs are going to ask of you when you get to externships, which are, for us here at Port Charlotte, and my program manager, we decided to do 30 hours per week. Now, keep this number in mind here, 250 hours for 2 terms, which equal 500 hours. You don't need 500 hours in that total term. You need to, each term has to be 250 hours. Now, for us to say that you need to do at least 30 hours a week, we do 10 hours a day. And we work with you based on your scheduling. Obviously, we know you have to work. But that being said, have a plan now. It's a sacrifice. And what I mean about sacrifice is you need to start having a plan, because you're going to be doing externships for 30 hours. You're going to be working. It's going to be a grind. I'm not going to lie to you. Everyone that's been through this program has gone through that before. So you have to understand the hour requirements. So start having a plan now. So you start thinking about, when you get to that point, do I need to cut back on my job? Am I financially able to do that? There's so many variables I cannot answer for you if you wait to the end and say to yourself or say to me, I cannot do that requirement. It's not my requirement. It's not the school requirement. It's the AST requirement for you to get those hours. Or you cannot sit for your certification, which is the CST, right? Or graduate a program. So have a plan in place. There's 500 hours for that 24 weeks. There's 2 terms, 12 and 12. You need to do at least a minimum of 30 hours a week. Now you're saying to yourself, as you take off your shoes and start counting, that's a little bit more than 250. Yes, that is true. We do that for you. We like to anticipate that there's stuff going to happen in your life. You're going to get a flat tire. You're going to get sick. I'm going to get tired. You're going to text Brad in the middle of the night. Not happening today. So if you did the minimum, and hopefully you probably did the math already, if you did 24 hours a week, you'll probably get to 250, but that's the minimum. I like to anticipate stuff's going to happen. I put a little buffer of time in there for you to anticipate stuff happening in your life. So you get those hours, because here's what's going to happen if you don't get those hours. and there's only a week left, and you can only do about 40 hours a week, right? And you need 50 hours. Guess what? You will now have to do that whole term over, right? You can keep those cases more likely based on the program manager if they let you, or look at the AST, but you would need to do that whole term again. The hours are gone. I've seen that before. It's not pretty. So I put a buffer in there, have a plan in place. I'm saying that over and over. Even the new students, even if you're thinking about a program, is it something you're capable of doing? The requirements are there. They're not going anywhere. Those are the hours. And I'm trying to get to my notes here full of this packet full of good stuff. So bear with me here. Now, kind of piggybacking on the hours, I don't know if you see that, you probably can't. We use something called course key. Now, these hours are tracked by GPS. Now, our program likes to track it because it's use it as a clock on, clock out situation. It does two things. It verifies that you're at that site. I don't have to go tracking down signatures, verifying that's the right signature. You're there. It's a GPS. You can only clock on in a certain radius. So we track you through a GPS called course key. And when you get to the orientation part, I'll show you how to set that up. You just download the app. It's on app stores. Obviously Android and iPhones, and I'll show you all that. So that's a good thing because you don't have to have timesheets anymore. You used to have to have those signed by those charge nurse, which you can never find, right? It's all done for you. You also can go on there and verify your hours, and there's a little bit of autonomy there where you can find and keep track of those hours on your own, right? So course key, we verify the hours that way. Now, let's get to the cases. And as I plow through my paperwork here, keep this in mind for cases. 120 is the number you need, okay? Let's just keep this simple right now. I'm not going to go too far into detail on this. Orientation, we will go over a lot of this information. And I guarantee you throughout the externships, you'll probably have questions throughout the process, okay? Two areas I want you to kind of remember here: general surgery and specialty surgeries. And a total number of cases throughout the 24 weeks. You don't need all this in the 12 weeks. You need it in total of that 24 weeks to accumulate 120, right? Get your shoes off. I'm talking to you, Brad. 30 cases on your general. And you need 90 for your specialty. Right, 90 and 30 are what? 120. All right, that's easy math. Even Brad can figure that one out. Now, there's two categories I want you to start thinking about. Something called a first scrub or a second scrub. Now, let me just define what a first scrub is based on AST, right? You set up the case. You go through that count with that charge nurse. You bring your Mayo up to the field. You are the first person passing instruments to the doctors throughout the case. You're anticipating what the doctor needs, right? The case ends. You do a final count. You break down the case. That is a first scrub roll. Certain percentage that you need in that first scrub roll. And in the general case, in that minimum of 20 in that first scrub roll. And that leads you to the second scrub roll. A scenario where you're scrubbed in and you're holding a retraction device. You're suctioning. You're helping the doctor in some aspect like that. Very simplistic, right? That's considered a second scrub roll based on AST. And if you do the math, obviously a minimum of 20 in that first scrub roll. Obviously you need 10 within that second scrub roll. Can you get all 30 in that first scrub roll? Of course you can. I would actually prefer you to do a first scrub roll. But what's going to happen is, hey, Brad, we need you in room 2 to hold retraction devices for a knee case. Well, you could still count it as a second scrub roll because you can get 10 in that scenario for the AST. Now, these are my requirements. These aren't the school's requirements. These are the AST requirements for you. If you don't get these requirements, we can't put your application in. You won't graduate. You cannot sit for this certification. because this is a requirement by the AST. Okay, that was general cases, 30, 20, 10, right? 20 on that first scrub, 10 on that second scrub roll. That goes into specialty. We'll go over what is exactly a general case in a minute. A specialty case. We need 90 of those. 90. Now going back to that first scrub roll, second scrub roll, right? We need 60, a minimum of 60 in that roll. And 30 in that second scrub roll, right? Again, you can get all of those in a first scrub roll, but the scenario and variables within hospitals dictate, like I stated before, maybe you need to hold retraction device, and that is considered a second scrub roll. So let me just reiterate what a first scrub roll is again. You set the case up, you go through a count, you organize your Mayo, you bring it up to the field, you're part of the case passing things to the doctor, you go through a final count, and you break that case down. I would say at least 70% of what that is a first scrub roll. Obviously, there's a lot of variables there. Maybe a preceptor brings you in and out. But if you do at least the 70%, I would say that's a first scrub roll. Again, for a specialty, you need 60, minimum of 60 in that roll, and 30 within the second scrub roll. And a second scrub roll is just retraction, suction device in that scenario, or maybe cutting sutures. Now, when students finally go out to externships and they say, well, you need to observe the first day, right? And we'll go over your first day a little bit in that scenario, but just think about this. Your first day, they say observe. Hey, just sit back, watch a couple cases. Here's what's going to happen. I want you to start doing this. Start pushing, not your limit, just start pushing the scenario of, can I scrub in and observe? What I'm telling you about is I don't want you standing on the wall unless the preceptor says you have to. And this is maybe the first week. Say, I don't mind observing and I want to watch the cases. Next case, maybe I can get a little bit better at it. But can I observe at the field? Here's what's going to happen, right? And I know doctors, they love students for this. Yeah, you're observing, you're watching, suddenly you're holding a retraction device. Boom, set scrub roll. And you can count that case now, and you're right up in the thick of it. So I always try to push that in the sense of scrubbing in and trying to observe that way. So you can try to count that case. It's better to observe at the field, and obviously you dictate what the preceptor wants, but that's what I want you to try to do at externships. Always trying to push in a sense of your learning experience. If you don't ask, the worst they can say is no, right? But specialty cases, let's go back to general. What is a general case? Well, it's a general surgeon. That's it. We're moving on. No, a general. That's a good indication of what the specialty is, what the doctor is, right? If he's a general surgeon, most likely it's a general case. I always tell students anything within the abdomen, right? Spleen, gallbladder, appendix, colon resection, right? The esophagus, a hiatal hernia, right? Something like that. Breast case. But a good indication is the surgeon, right? What is the specialty of that surgeon? Will typically indicate where you're putting your case requirements at. Now, a specialty case can range from cardiothoracic, ENT, right? Ear, nose, and throat. Eye cases, we all love eye cases. Raise your hand if you like an eye case. Urology, oh yeah, I love urology. I can hear it now, urology boy. Neuro cases, OBGYN, orthopedic cases, peripheral vascular cases, or plastics, right? If you're not sure, obviously ask your externship coordinator or your instructors where that falls into play. Again, we give you information. Most programs will. We'll give you a packet. I have you do an Excel. I have so much paperwork I'm going to give you, you're probably going to hate me. Again, it's not Brad's paperwork. It's required, okay? Are you organized? Well, it's going to benefit you on your externships. You need to be organized in the sense of your paperwork. Otherwise, it's going to be a very tedious process. You will not grad out unless these are all organized. Trust me. So general cases, just like I stated before, kind of divvy up. There is a caveat to the specialty cases. Now, you need 90 of them. Now, you can't get all 90 in orthopedics. I'm pretty sure some orthopedic guys would love that. No, we need to divvy it up at least a minimum of 4 categories of in that 10 in that first grub roll. So I'll give an example of ENT, urology, neuro, or I would say orthopedics. Well, let's take orthopedics out of there because that's probably the most common thing you're going to get out in surgery. I would say ENT, eye, urology, neuro. I want a minimum of 10 in that first grub roll. Wherever else you get, wherever else you divvy up those cases is up to you and wherever the chips may lie, so to speak. But make sure you have an equal ratio within at least 4 of those categories. Now, throughout externships, throughout your prep classes, I'm going to be there, right? I'm going to help you, guide you along based on your requirements. But it takes 2 to tango. All right, so you're keeping track of it, right? If I tell you, hey, you have way too much orthopedics, you shouldn't be doing 5 knee cases when there's 4 gallbladders on, right? So we need to use a little common sense. Now, unless they need you in that room and they specify we're shorthanded, we need you today. Yeah, you're saying, yeah, I'm there, right? I understand that, okay? So there's some other scenarios of diagnostic endo cases. And I don't usually tell people about this until the second term. I use these as a backup plan. But you can get 10 in that diagnostic endo cases, right? Colonostomy, scopes, 10 in that second scrub roll. So when you're out in the field, don't do them right off the bat, especially the first term. Wait to the last term. And when I'm starting to look at the numbers and I say that's an easy 10, typically I'll say go to endo and we'll get those 10s and maybe that'll help you solidify your cases at the end. But don't get them in the beginning, right? There's also for vaginal and delivery cases, you can get up to 5 in that second scrub roll. Again, I try to use that at the very end, but it all goes towards your total, which is 120. Who's confused? Raise their hand. Everyone in the crowd. Hey. Just to recap, on general cases, there's 30. Minimum of 20 in that first scrub roll. And then 10 in that second scrub roll, which get 30, right? 90 specialty. Minimum of 60 in that first scrub roll. 30 in that second scrub roll. So externships, those are case requirements that we need. And throughout the whole externship process, those are things that we keep track of. And I do that once a week. You'll come in for your prep class and I will go over with you about how to implement keeping track of that. Get a binder. Have a plan in place of how you're going to keep yourself organized. Don't come in and it's 52 pickup in your book bag. It's telling me that, yeah, it's a tsunami. You're going to get overwhelmed. You're going to lose stuff. Be organized. Please. And when you start externships, you're going out there. Everyone says, do I know everything? Did they teach me every single thing? The answer is yes, we taught you everything. No. Obviously, there's a lot of information this program has thrown at you. This is where you're going to start to implement things that you learned. But do you have to go back and kind of refresh your memory on things? Yes, everyone does. So what does that mean? Anatomy, right? That's a hard thing to, it's a constant battle to learn anatomy for everyone. If you don't use it, you'll lose it. But what I want you to say is when you go to externships, the first week, let's say you're starting externships, you're going out the first day, right? You're going to be nervous, right? Channel those nerves. If you're not making mistakes, you're not learning. Just don't make 15 mistakes in one day. No. You're there to learn at externships. So stuff's going to happen. You just progressively get better. You do one gallbladder, right? You do the next gallbladder. If you have not improved in some aspect, you're just not getting better. You should ask yourself, what am I doing wrong? Right. Now, what is a preceptor? That's someone that's going to be teaching you your job, right? So, surgical technologist that works in the field. And it's just not one preceptor, it's who you're assigned to in that room, right? You're in room 2, you're with Brad today. That's your preceptor. And everyone's a little bit different in how they teach. So the correct answer is, yes, I'll do it your way. And if you go to another room and someone does it a little bit differently, don't say that's not the way so-and-so showed you that. You just take every little information that people give you and you make it your own as soon as you graduate and go into the field. I have so many varieties of ways people have shown me how to set up a field, and I kind of took it and made it my own, right? So, externship spheres, right? Yes, ma'am. Yes, doctor. Correct it and just move on, right? Take that experience. There's going to be some ups and downs. I got it. Get through that day. You're going to be so excited some days, and some days you're going to question yourself. That's normal, okay? That's a normal thing, but I know you can do it, okay? Give yourself a little bit of a break. Set your standard, but not so high where you can't meet these standards, right? Now, what that means is give yourself a little break. You're learning, and you can progressively get a little bit better out there in that field. That's what I want you to do, okay? So the first day you're out there, you're going to go to that charge nurse desk. Each one of you, I'm going to go to your sites. If not me, someone's going to go with you. Make sure you're comfortable. You go to your sites. We give you a tour. We show you where the locker room is. We show you who the charge nurse is. So the charge nurse, do not make that person angry, all right? Whatever you do at the site, you go through that charge nurse. No matter if that preceptor, that person you're working with says otherwise. The reason is because that charge nurse knows more about what's going on in real time. Maybe a doctor's having a bad day and you get thrown into a room. We don't want to put you through that scenario. Maybe he doesn't want a student in there. So verify through that charge nurse what changes in or who I'm with. Those are just some examples of the clinical requirements. Not examples, but maybe a little short synopsis of the requirements. These are things that we're going to talk to you about throughout the whole process. And obviously the students that are in my class, we're going to go over in a lot more detail. We'll have an orientation. I'll have a packet for you. But remember, externships, it's a time for you to have fun. It's a time for you to implement the things you've learned throughout the program. And even the things that maybe you forgot, or maybe things that maybe you didn't comprehend too well. Make a note of it. Do some research. If you're in a case the night before and you know you're in a gallbladder, an appendix, colon resection, whatever, right? If you go in the next day and you did no research whatsoever, I mean, that's your own fault, right? Someone turns to you have any idea what we're looking at. Have some understanding of the anatomy, right? I'm not expecting you to be proficient at it, but you should know the basics of what we're looking at. That's going to help you anticipate, right? In the beginning, that's probably the last thing you're going to worry about. But that goes back to progressively getting better. Your first step is to be proficient on that back table. Can you set up the instruments of what the doctor is requiring? And eventually you should progressively get anticipating the order that the doctor wants. That takes time. Trust me, over time you get better. It's a craft, right? You have to shape that craft in some aspect. Have fun at externships, okay? Don't give up. Trust me. Externships is a time for having fun, but also a time to learn. So again, if you're not making mistakes, you're not learning. Just don't repeat those mistakes 15 times. I know you can do it. But most of all, have fun out there, okay? All right, on to the next introduction.